Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 18 of History's Greatest Idiots, the show in which we take you back through the absolute length and breadth of human history and give you examples of human stupidity so that you can learn from their mistakes and make sure that you don't repeat them. But who are we kidding? We're humans. We enjoy making mistakes, so much so that today we've got some quite, because we never tell each other who we're covering, but we've got some possibly one of our longer episodes today because we've got a lot of information to cover. Yeah, if you listen to our, and I know quite a few people do listen to our podcast all the way through, either as sleep aids or because they're masochists, I don't know. Then you're really going to love today's episode because, you know, it could be one of our longer ones. So joining me as ever is my amazing co-host, Derek. Derek, how has your week been? How are things with you?
It's been pretty good. Baseball's kicking back off.
Yes.
But I ran into an actual real life scenario of people repeating the same mistakes over and over and over again. But I don't know if I should talk about it or not.
Oh, is it a litigious situation potentially?
No, I'm not sure. It has to do with our hosting platform.
I think for now, because we never know who's listening, we won't go into details. However, things may be changing here. And all we can say for now is that our hosting platform is surprisingly not great at their job.
That's indeed.
That's the most polite way I can possibly put what's going on. But we will hopefully be sorting that in the near future. In fact, we're making moves too. How are things over in Arizona? So your son is getting starting with baseball again, and things going okay over there with everyone else?
Yeah. He's starting his fall season. Everything is just it's finally cooling down. I mean, it's still a little hot, so everybody's angry and just over it, as we are at this time of the year every year.
Yeah,
but everything's going well. Going into the fall.
Awesome. Yeah, I've noticed that as well. It's started to get cold to the point where I'm like, oh, I can wear 2 layers now. And
I'm so looking forward to hoodies.
Yeah, you know, like being warm. There's something, I guess it's something that happens as you get older and, you know, bits of your body start to fall off. But I look forward to colder weather more than I do hot weather because I have more control over what I can wear and what I can cover up. You know? So I enjoy spring, autumn, even winter I quite enjoy because it's something very like special about the crisp, cold air that I really, really enjoy. But the summer, I struggle.
I kind of just disappear from like April to September here.
Yeah, because that's basically like, well, it's over half the year, and you know, you guys get very, very hot weather. So yeah, I can completely understand that. But when it gets a bit more temperate, you know, and obviously it's getting darker, but you know, I've taken the dog because my wife's away for the weekend. I've taken the dog for some really interesting walks the last couple of days, and I get an option to do that without being drenched in sweat and nearly dying of dehydration. So
yeah. That's always fun when you come back all dripping.
I guess I can't do anything for the next 2 hours because I need to fall asleep now. It's my usual thing. It's like I need to be unwell and fall asleep. But yeah, we've had really lovely times. And over in the UK at the moment, and this is probably something we should mention because we're a history podcast, is that we're in the middle of a bank holiday because the Queen's, you know, shuffled loose her mortal coil. I am no royalist by any stretch of the imagination. I do tend to lean more on the side of it's a 96-year-old. Well, was she 96? I don't know. She was fucking old.
I think so.
Yeah.
Old enough.
Old as fuck. Yeah. So, you know, it's an old woman. She had family, you know, a few of whom don't really, you know, aren't really to be given breaks in situations, but, you know, you be reasonably respectful. But at the same time, the wall-to-wall coverage we have had in this country of her death, of the procession of people queuing up to see her lying in state like 9 to 12 hours has been crazy, and to the point where 2 national TV presenters might lose their jobs because they jumped the queue to see her grave. Yeah.
Wow.
So
none of that makes any damn sense to me.
I know, it's so fucking crazy. One person on Twitter put the the video of like the Queen, the whole process of the Queen lying in state and the news coverage over audio of the BBC describing the death of Kim Jong-il. They were like, spot the difference. It was really weird, to be honest. And I'm Welsh. We are not fans really of like royalty and institutional stuff because we've been living under foreign rules since the Romans arrived. So, you know, it's like it's but you know, some members of my family really love the Queen and the royals, and you know, I get it, but at the same time, like I wish I could opt out of some of the media coverage. It is all encompassing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's weird because over here the coverage, at least where I'm coming across, is a lot of oh no, and then it's a lot of like, yeah, well, she's a colonial leader that just ruled over people and made shit suck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I suppose if you look at it that way.
Yeah, which is true. Let's not forget the colonial past that she inherited and was quite fond of. So, you know, and how just massively detached from the rest of us, the royal family are. I know a few people who have worked with them, including one guy who we are basically convinced is a spy, because whenever there was an incident in a country or a major world event, he'd be like, "Oh, I've got business over here," and we're like, "Oh yeah, do you? Sure, okay, right." So, yeah, and he'd disappear and come back with a tan and be exhausted, and you know. Anyway, away from my spy friend. Yeah, we know a few people who know the royals, and I've not always had the greatest of feedback on them, and I've heard a lot about famous people. So anyway, we won't go into too much detail, but safe to say that we're in a weird time in history because the only queen that anyone has ever known has passed away. My grandmother has known 5 royals now. The queen's
take that.
Yeah, the queen's let's see. So she was born when the queen's grandfather ruled. Trying to think. Yes, the queen's grandfather, and then that passed down to Bertie, who abdicated.
Right.
And then passed on to his brother David. No, David abdicated. It went on to Bertie. Anyway, she knew that those 3, and then obviously the Queen after the king died, and now Charles. And she's like, oh, you know, they come and go, you know. So,
yeah. I guess that's a way to look at it.
When you're 91 years old, you know, royals, 92 even, royals come and go. You know, she's seen so many of them. So
yeah. Well, I mean, this queen. Oh man, I just almost went horribly wrong there. I'll just leave it alone. I was going to say the queen was coming and coming and coming, and now she just finally went.
Yeah, she did.
But
yeah. She, I'd imagine that, you know, it's going to go on for a little while longer because we've got the funeral tomorrow, but I won't be watching. That's like an extra day of work for me. I'm just going to enjoy myself. Anyway, away from all the craziness that's happening at this side of the pond and is getting coverage all over the world, Derek, can you tell us who your idiot of the week is, please?
Well, I've got this actor feller who's also directed and done some other things.
Oh, interesting.
And it seems like it's more common these days for celebrities to say and do horrible, crazy shit that's insensitive or whatever, and they get canceled.
Yeah, that's very common now. Yeah.
The dude I got today is like the OG of doing that, I think. He said some dumb, shitty, hateful, absurd things and got himself canceled.
Wow.
For a little while, anyway. He was born in Peekskill, New York on January 3rd of 1956 and is the sixth of 11 children. Wow, I can't say THs. Cool. This is going to be fun. His mom was just like popping kids out like some sort of Pez, I imagine. And anyway, his parents are Irish descent. His mother was actually born in Ireland. And it's because of his mother's status that he retains dual Irish and American citizenship.
Right. Okay.
In 1968, his father got hurt at work and was awarded a large settlement in a work-related injury case against the New York Central Railroad. Scored him about $145,000, and then the family dipped to Australia, where he also maintains a permanent residentship, whatever.
Wow.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah,
so he's Irish American and he can go to Australia. But I
Yeah,
always
so
thought he
like,
was Australian, so.
oh, I think I know who you're talking about now.
Oh. Whoop, did I give it away? I hope not. So his family moves to Australia,
Right.
and I guess it's partly to live out on that money.
Mm.
It's better economically.
Yeah, certainly in Australia around about what, the 60s, 70s,
68. Yep.
yeah, it's $140,000 goes a long way out there at that time. Gets you a lot of land. I was going to say property, but it would be land at that point, that kind of money. So it's kind
Say
of
like a
crazy.
cattle ranch or something. Anyway,
Yeah.
the other reason he was there is his oldest son was right about the age for the draft, and it was
Ooh.
1968, and the United States was in Vietnam doing things.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons they went there. But
Smart.
anyway, during his high school years, he's in New South Wales on the east coast of Australia, doing his thing, going to St. Leo's Catholic College, where he's getting his education from the Congregation of Christian Brothers.
Okay.
It's like a educational sect of the Catholic Church, I guess.
Okay.
Not much going on there. And after high school, he gets into acting and studies at the National Institute of Dramatic Art in Sydney.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
As a student there, he's playing opposite Judy Davis in the school's production of Romeo and Juliet.
Wow.
And he plays the role of Queen Titiana in the experimental production of A Midsummer Night's Dream.
Interesting.
Yeah. So following that, he graduates in 1977 and scores a role in his first movie, Summer City, where he makes a whopping $400.
It's a start,
It is a start. And then his second foot through the door is his first major role in a movie on the big screen, playing the title character of a very popular film that was released in 1979. And he made about $15,000 for it, which is not really much considering how big the movie became.
Sure.
Anyway, he gets good press from the film critics, and he gets a ton of comparisons to classic movie stars like Steve McQueen, Clark Gable, Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah. And
around this same time, he meets his first wife, who's working as a dental nurse for the South Australian Theatre Company. And by June 7th of 1980, the two are married and pop out a kid, because that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what you did in the 80s. Get married young, pop out a kid, have a tiny mortgage that you pay off very quickly.
Except for that part, I did the same thing in the 2000s.
I think everyone that got a mortgage after the 80s was like, oh shit, this is going to take me decades to pay off. So yeah. Sorry, the Toasterzoids popped in. Can Rockefeller say poop? Poop. There we go. So you haven't told me the name of this first film, but I think I know what it is.
Right.
I'm not going to say it. Right.
I'm holding on to it for just a minute. Sure. I'm gonna keep the suspense growing. For a while after having his kid, he's in some Australian television series and films. But it's after director Peter Weir cast him as one of the leads in the World War I drama.
Gallipoli?
That one. Yep. In 1989. Yeah, he lands himself an agent, heads off to Hollywood, and actually gets a reputation as a serious and versatile actor.
Yeah, Gallipoli was it was a very, very tough and true story, because there was a tragic mass death in World War I in those battles around Gallipoli and Ypres and Passchendaele and places like that. So yeah, it was a really interesting film, and for a young up-and-coming actor, it was a really, really good opportunity. That kind of the modern version of that, I guess you could consider, would be a version of it would be 1917, which was released by Sam Mendes a couple of years ago. Roger Deakins was
familiar.
The DP. Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime. I'm pretty certain it's on there. It's filmed as if it's one long shot. But obviously they use trickery to hide the edits and cuts and stuff. But but it feels, ironically, even though it's a World War I thing, it feels like you're actually watching a video game. That's how it feels. Yeah, it's the closest thing I think you'll ever see to an Oscar-winning video game film. for a very long time. But yeah, please carry on. So he was in Gallipoli, gets an agent, ball starting to roll.
And then, yeah, he gets his first American success, and it's actually with a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what the sequel is. You know who I'm talking about by now. You said it, but
Yeah.
it's coming, I promise. Maybe.
Yeah.
So the following year, he takes a 1-year hiatus from acting for the birth of his twin sons in 1982.
Nice.
And comes back and snatches up a role of Fletcher Christian in The Bounty.
Oh, yeah. I remember
In 1985, he earns his first $1 million salary for playing, once again, Max Mad Max.
Mad Max. It's Mad Max.
Yeah.
And that would be Beyond Thunderdome, I guess.
That was Beyond Thunderdome. Yep.
Yeah. That was not a great film, but the first two are amazing.
Right? Well,
yeah.
Sequel's never really that good. I think it's strange that it was the sequel to the first one that actually got him success here. So, I mean, why not take a third shot?
Absolutely. And I think that, the sequel, because Mad Max was like a cult film, it was a huge success, but it was a cult film. It's one of those things where I think because the sequel was so good, it made people go back and appreciate it more. Kind of like Aliens and Alien. Like Aliens was another huge hit, and people were like, oh, let's go back and look at Alien, which itself was a big hit, but people were like, oh my God, this is a masterful horror film. Which it really wasn't considered. It was considered kind of a B movie, and it was given quite bad reviews at the time. But after the success of Aliens and the huge amount of money that made, people would go back. And same thing happened with Mad Max. People were like, this is incredibly well made. And the director, George, what's his name?
Good question.
Yeah, whatever his name is, he did Happy Feet, amazingly weird film.
Oh,
but yeah, and he's got another one coming out soon. George Miller, I think it is. He is a masterful filmmaker, but he takes like a decade to make each film. So he's a slow working genius.
To each their own.
Yeah.
Anyway, so by now everybody knows I'm talking about Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
And in 1985, we'll follow him along to being named Sexiest Man Alive by People magazine.
Sexy man.
It was the first time that somebody had been given that title.
Yes, he was the first.
So in 1985, he's taken off. He's the sexiest man alive. He works on 4 films in a row. Bam, bam, bam. Then he takes 2 years off and goes to an Australian cattle ranch.
Nice.
Where he just disappears for 2 years. Yeah. Then he pops back up and does Lethal Weapon in 1987.
Which was huge.
Yeah, it cemented his success as a Hollywood dude, as an action hero, a leading man.
For sure. And also earned him so much money, like on residuals, because at this point he's such a big star that he can command like a cut of the profits and stuff. So
yes. Well, he's not quite making tons of money yet, but he's getting ready to. Yeah. So he does Tequila Sunrise in 88, then Lethal Weapon 2 in 89, and then 90 hits, and he does Bird on a Wire, Air America, Hamlet, and shit's taken off.
Yeah, really is.
It continues through the 90s with Forever Young, Lethal Weapon 3, Maverick, Braveheart, fucking tons of them. He's just knocking them down.
It's interesting. Sorry, just I want to interject there. Braveheart was like the big one because it won shitloads of Oscars and kind of like, wow, okay, he's a serious actor and he can do accents sort of. But it was the first creeping sign that his grasp of historical accuracy may not be quite as good as it should be.
It's super. His historical accuracy is super straight up American.
Yeah, and
not that all Americans don't grasp history. I'm just saying, people like me generally.
It's just it ignores nuance. Mel Gibson's view on history. It's like, because this idea of, I mean, Braveheart can be ripped apart by historians and regularly is for like the tactics, the fact that they're wearing blue war paint and kilts, which just didn't happen, and they had no one had worn blue face paint for like 1,000+ years.
Close.
Yeah, and the whole like the way he portrayed what's his name?
William Wallace?
William Wallace. Yeah, William Wallace is a wealthy landowner. He wasn't like some scrub who for the crown. Like, this was a very wealthy, well-off, well-trained man who had a clan behind him. It wasn't just some, oh, look at me, I live in a mud hut kind of thing. It wasn't like that.
Well, that's not the only movie where he's been wildly inaccurate, and we'll get to
no.
that here in a minute.
Yeah.
So in the 2000s is when he gets his record salary.
Yes.
After all of that success with Braveheart and Lethal Weapons and Payback and shit, even a Disney movie when he did John Smith for Pocahontas.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He was in that. I forgot.
In 2000, he appears in The Patriot, which grosses over $100 million. He scores himself a salary of $25 million on it.
Jeez.
And then does 2 more movies, Chicken Run and What Women Want, because fuck it, why not?
Light-hearted comedies as well. It's like, and actually, I think he really enjoyed What Women Want, because not only did he get to play a playboy, but also like he got to dance in a film.
He
has like a little dance.
I missed that part.
Yeah, there's like a whole dance sequence in his apartment where he's like throwing his hat around and stuff. And like, I feel like he feels like a guy who wants to do things to say, hey, look, I can do this. I can do serious. I can do comedy. I can do claymation. I can do dancing and all of that shit. So, yeah, I think that was probably quite a good time for him, especially when you're getting paid $25 million a film. I don't think he got that from Aardman, who are based in Bristol in the United Kingdom. So I think he probably did that for the fact that they were huge because of the Wallace and Gromit films. But yeah, he's earning a shitload of money at this point in time.
He is. Yeah. And it continues into the rest of the 2000s when he does the Vietnam War drama, We Were Soldiers, which is like, I don't know why I really like that movie.
It's really good. It is really, really good. And also as a director and writer and stuff, he makes really good films.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part.
Just outside of films, he's got troubles, and those are coming. And it's not the M. Night Shyamalan movie where he plays a priest that gave up on his religiousness,
which I love. I love Signs.
Dude, everybody hates that, but I love it.
I love it too. And people hate The Village. I really enjoy that as well. What's the matter with people?
The Village, I hated originally because they marketed it like shit. They made it seem like it was going to be something totally different than it was. So I was like, what the hell is this? There's no risk. I don't want to spoil it. I know it's 100 years old.
Yeah, exactly. If you haven't seen M. Night Shyamalan films yet, we won't discuss them in detail, but pretty much every single one has got a twist. That's the twist, is that if you can find one that doesn't have a twist, that's the twist in an M. Night Shyamalan film. But yeah, the Village and Signs. Signs is a particularly good one because the twist is like, there's like a kind of an, how do we put this? Like a theological twist, I think you could say. Yeah, that's like, that isn't explicitly mentioned like a lot of the other twists, but it's sort of heavily implied. So yeah, that's
nuancedness.
Yeah, and I quite enjoyed it. And it's a really nice performance by Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix and even Abigail Breslin, who's like the little girl in that film, is adorable and really like natural. You feel like the performance is totally genuine from this young girl. Like, and why are you leaving glasses of water everywhere? They're contaminated. And it's like the kind of it's the kind of thing that a kid would say. I love that whole film. Really do.
Well, and I guess maybe I'm just not hanging out with the right people, because obviously people loved it. It was the highest grossing film of his acting career.
Wow, really?
Yep.
I'm genuinely surprised by that.
And as like a baller, he decides that while he's promoting Signs, he's no longer going to be a movie star, and says he only wants to act in films if the script is truly extraordinary.
I mean, sure, if you can afford to do that, why the fuck not? You know?
Well, he's got other plans too, and he doesn't actually return to the screen until 2010.
Wow. Shit.
He does, however, take a seat behind the camera, and in September 2002, he announces that he's going to film this movie called The Passion.
Yeah.
And it's going to be done in Aramaic, and it's going to be done in Latin, and there's going to be no subtitles, because we're going to transcend language barriers with filmatic storytelling.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Anyway, in 2004, he releases the controversial film The Passion of the Christ, which he co-wrote, co-produced, and directed. And that became the highest grossing R-rated film at the time, raking in $370,782,930.
For an R-rated film, that is a lot of money. I remember at the time the kind of furore around this. It was being screened in churches, this film. Like they were putting on performances in churches for congresses. What's the word I'm looking
Congregations.
For? Congregations, thank you.
Yes.
And they really were. That film was everywhere, and it was not just controversial, but it made the news for a number of different reasons.
Brutally violent?
Yeah, incredibly violent. And I mean, people always knew that Mel Gibson had starred in quite violent films. The Mad Max films are Wallflowers, and a lot of the
Lethal Weapon
films are quite violent, and The Patriot is quite a violent film, and all sorts of stuff. The Passion kickstarted half of the planet's BDSM kinks. Controversial opinion, but yeah, it does. I mean, there's a prolonged scene of somewhat of Jesus being whipped in that film. It's an incredibly violent film, but I remember seeing a lot of the people at interviews with people coming out of the theater crying because they felt the power of the film. And one woman said, "You you get a sense of what Jesus went through." I'm like, yeah, but do you know? Do we know that's what happened? That he was whipped for this exact length of time in this exact way? And I don't know if the Bible goes into that much detail. I'm married to a theologian now, so maybe I should ask her. But
turns out it's not necessarily historically accurate. Maybe, probably, like Braveheart, it may have taken some liberties.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, just like he promised, though, the film was shot exclusively in Aramaic and Latin and Hebrew,
which is great.
But it had subtitles because.
Studio's got to get in there and ruin everything, haven't they? Making it accessible to viewers.
Exactly. They had to do something, to get their 2 cents in, I guess. But I think without it, it wouldn't have been the same because
no one would have seen it. Maybe a few people in Israel, and they would not have been happy with the portrayal.
No. Well, it actually, it sparked the divergent reviews. There was people saying it was high praise, like you said, and then there was criticism of the violence. And the Anti-Defamation League accused him of anti-Semitism because of his unflattering depiction of some of the characters in there.
Yeah.
The Jewish ones.
Fair. Yeah.
There was actually one review of the film in The Nation, which is a bi-weekly magazine that covers political and cultural news.
Okay.
And the reviewer said, quote, "Gibson has violated just about every precept of the conference's own 1988 criteria," which is a reference to the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops.
Right.
And that he violated the precepts by portraying Jews in dramatizations of the Passion as bloodthirsty Jews with no use of scripture that reinforces any negative stereotypes that are shown on screen. And the priests have big noses and gnarly faces and lumpish bodies and yellow teeth. And Herod and his court are like a bizarre collection of oily-haired perverts. This is the quote still. So, needless to say, people weren't happy about the movie as equally as they were happy about the movie. But I think probably more mad about the movie. I'm rambling.
No, but the depictions, I remember that. A lot of eyebrows were raised about the depictions of certain people in the film, and that's when suspicion was cast his way, because he's in almost complete control of this film, right? To the point where no studio in their right mind would release a film in 3 different dead languages. Hebrew isn't dead, but 2 of 3 of the languages are dead in this film, unless it was because one of the most powerful and biggest drawing people in Hollywood were making those decisions and forcing them to. So
that's exactly what happened. But there were some people that defended him, including an Orthodox Jewish rabbi and a radio personality and some other celebrities. But the negative media attacks actually continued on and started to anger Mel. And much like the Hulk, you don't want to anger Mel Gibson. You don't want to see him when he's angry. You only want to see him when he's mad. Mad Max.
You really do.
Anyway, that was a bad joke. Sorry. the media kept at him, and they published some stuff that his dad said denying the Holocaust. And that really, really pissed him off. So much so that he came out with this quote that said, of the writer Frank Rich, "I want to kill him. I want to see his intestines on a stick. I want to kill his dog."
Why
Dude,
his
what the fuck?
dog? His dog didn't say
Yeah.
anything, you prick.
So, yeah, so he violent sometimes.
Kind of crazy as well.
So I'm going to circle back to the fact that Mel Gibson he says he had a drinking problem that started at the age of 13.
Oof.
When he was back at the National Institute of Drama and Acting, he found out he was also a manic depressive.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, and it led to some high highs and low lows. So his mental state's kind of in this flux, and he's abusing alcohol, which never goes well.
No. Not if you have a pre-existing mental condition. If you have an addiction on top of that, that's like a recipe for disaster right there.
It's a common theme with people that kind of go off the rails.
It is. It really is.
Don't self-medicate.
No.
In 1984, he was actually banned from driving in Ontario, Canada for 3 months after getting into a rear-end car wreck in Toronto while he was drunk.
Wow.
And his drinking started to get out of control. He confided into a friend and collaborator that he was drinking 5 pints of beer for breakfast.
Oh, wow. That makes Paul Gascoigne's 5 Mars bars for breakfast seem relatively tame, to be quite honest.
These guys are competing for 5 of the worst things for breakfast ever.
We'll be moving on to anthrax next. But yeah, that is 5 pints of beer for breakfast. You're going to be burping for the rest of the day. That is not a good start to the day.
I'm actually impressed with his ability to maintain that awesome physique through all of that beer, because mine did not do that.
Mine didn't either. Mind you, when I was a teenager, I drank and worked out while I was before and after I had been drinking. So I guess like you burn it off. But as I got older and stopped drinking, your body just sort of gives in anyway. But yeah, I guess like when you have as much money as Mel Gibson did, you have personal trainers, right? And they don't mind if you show up pissed as long as they get paid.
Yeah, so, that makes sense. Yeah, and it is easier, when you're in your 30s or 20s to drink and work out. I remember that. So remember when I said in 1985 he took 2 years off?
Yeah.
And he went to his Australian cattle farm?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out because he was struggling with drinking, and he went there to go recover. And
he went to get clean.
Get his shit together. Yeah.
Okay.
In an interview, he says in his mid-30s that he had this bout of despair that led him to contemplate suicide. Wow. And he really, during that time, turned to Christ's passion to heal his wounds.
Okay.
And then he took some more time and sought professional help. But some of that help that he was getting led to other troubles when the Sunday Mirror published things that he had said during AA meetings, which is a total dick move.
Yeah, you should not have minutes from an AA meeting. That's a really private situation. What the hell?
Yeah. So he's had some rough knocks. Not all of them were his fault. And I mean, battling mental health and addiction, it's hesitant to say it's not his fault, but it's not exactly in his. Yeah, my anti-Semitism is okay because I drink, says Toastazoid. Yeah, that's absolutely kind of what he tried to say.
It does feel like a little bit of a cop-out, but yeah.
His problems actually continued with the Gay and Lesbian Alliance. Glad got mad at him and accused him of homophobia after a December 1991 interview in a Spanish newspaper where he made derogatory comments. And
sorry, just to interrupt. Sorry, I was going to say there was someone, I can't remember which celebrity it was, and I can't remember what the interview was, but they said they went to a party and they went there dressed like in a specific way that wasn't like what you would call gender normative. And Mel Gibson came up to them and said, "What are you, some kind of," and then dropped the F slur.
Oh.
And at that point they were like, "Oh, I'm not going to bother with this person anymore. He's horrible." So, and he was sober at the time, as they remember. So,
yeah, sometimes you're just a dick.
As well. Yeah, sometimes you're just an arsehole, and drinking is just a side part of being an arsehole as opposed to being the reason for it. So.
And if you're like me, sometimes it's your excuse for why you were an asshole. Anyway, not a valid one.
No.
But so he defends his comments, rejects calls to apologize, and then joins up with GLAAD, which is the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. and he hosts 10 lesbian and gay filmmakers on location for like a seminar during his movie Conspiracy Theory in 97.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember seeing that in the cinema. It's quite an intense film. I mean, he doesn't do anything other than intense films, but yeah, didn't know he did that. That's at least the right call to make. But having people on set is one thing. Advocating for them so that they can get work is a totally different thing, and I don't think he would have gone that far.
Not exactly, no. Because in 99, when he was asked about his comments and all of that, he says, "I shouldn't have said it, but I was tickling a bit of vodka during the interview, and that quote came back to bite me on the ass." That's not exactly apologizing for it at all.
Really isn't.
I was drunk, like Toastazoid said.
I had a little bit of drink, and I thought I'd say a homophobic slur. So, soon.
Yeah. Well, people do. Anyway, the hits kept coming, and in July of 2006, he's arrested by Sheriff's Deputy James Mee of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department for guess why?
Drunk driving and anti-Semitic abuse.
That comes in the middle of the stop, but it was drunk driving and speeding.
Oh, okay, right.
The anti-Semitic thing comes over here in a minute.
Yeah, it's quite a weird one as well.
Oh, dude, it's so weird. He first tells the officer when he pulls up, these are quotes here, "My life is over. I'm fucked. Robin's going to leave me." End quote. Right. That's his wife.
Okay, well, that's the manic depression talking. I'm pretty certain she wouldn't have left you because you've been pulled over for speeding and being drunk. Like, shit happens.
Unless there was some sort of like, hey, if you do that again, son of a...
I can see that, but still, it's an addict, and but yeah. Anyway, so sorry. Please carry on with the quote.
Well, according to the arrest report, he burst into this angry tirade that he actually later on in a Vanity Fair interview he says was an attempt to commit suicide by cop.
Oh, come on.
We'll jump into this and you form your own opinion. God, this is okay. These are quotes.
YouTube.
Don't get mad at me. So Mel Gibson says to the arresting officer, quote, "Fucking Jews. The Jews are responsible for all of the wars in the world. Are you a Jew? How is that suicide by cop? That's just being
That's not suicide by cop. That's just being an arsehole. Suicide by cop is trying to grab the gun.
Yeah,
or like
poking at him with a fork.
Cop. Yeah, exactly. Like that is not suicide by cop. That's being a racist, anti-Semitic piece of shit.
Exactly.
Simple.
And rightfully so or not, but the arrest report was leaked on TMZ.
Yeah.
And it went nuts. And he came out and he offers 2 apologies, one through his publicist and one in an interview with Diane Sawyer.
Which is where everyone used to go to apologize at one point in time. Diane Sawyer was your ground zero for apology tours.
Dude. Yeah. Well, that actually reminded me. Have you ever seen Orville? That Seth MacFarlane space show?
I really enjoy it. Yeah.
Dude, it's awesome.
It's so good.
The apology tour on that one planet. Dude.
Yes.
Okay. So now that I've got everybody thoroughly, watch Orville.
Watch Orville. It's great. It really is.
On Hulu, Disney Plus, wherever it's at.
Yeah.
So TMZ releases that he goes on his apology tour and he further apologizes for his despicable behavior, saying that he blurted out the comments in a moment of insanity. And then he asked to meet with Jewish leaders to help him discern the appropriate path for healing. These are quotes.
Yeah.
Again,
there are 11 steps on that path.
Dude, 32 steps. Anyway, he 12 steps, 13 steps. He goes back into rehab.
Right, yeah, which he needed, really.
And after 26 years of marriage, his wife Robin separated from him on July 29th, 2006. So he wasn't wrong, apparently.
Yeah, that's going to be tough right there.
He says the separation began the day following my arrest for drunk driving in Malibu. She files for divorce on April 13th, 2009, citing irreconcilable differences. Sure. And the divorce filing actually followed some photos that came out in March of him holding on to this Russian songwriter and pianist Oksana Grigoriev.
Oh, interesting. So he's right.
During the separation, he's getting with the hot Russian.
Which everyone does. You know, You're in a downward spiral. I think the same thing happened to Ronnie Wood, the Rolling Stones. He got with a hot blonde Russian who was like half his age.
Hey, there was another guy that did that. I think he ran for president afterwards.
No, you're thinking of peeing on Russians. That's a totally different thing.
So
That's
close.
Why? Yes.
So she files for divorce after those pictures come out. And on April 28th, he actually shows up on a red carpet with Oksana.
Oh, what? Dude.
Yep.
Your side piece, really?
Well, by October, they celebrated the birth of their daughter.
Oh, shit.
Dude, he's knocking out kids the same way his dad did. Pop, 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 like a Pez dispenser.
Jesus.
So following the show up in April on the red carpet, the next year, October, they have their baby. By April of the next year in 2010, they split up. And she files a restraining order.
Oh, shit.
4 days later, he files a restraining order on her.
Okay, yeah, that's just a tactical move.
Finger pointy stuff.
Yeah, that's like, oh, she's done it. We have to do it now so that it looks like a mutual breakdown instead of Mel Gibson, the crazy anti-Semitic guy, has done it again.
Yeah. Tries a little damage control, but it doesn't work because in July of 2010, there's like this recorded phone call that comes out.
Oh, I remember this.
Where he suggested that he hopes she got raped by a pack of N-words.
Yep. I remember that phone call, and that's like one of about 15 horrific different things that he says in this phone call. It is like, and the poor woman, you can hear her end, and a lot of the phone call is just her being shocked, but not knowing how to reply.
Because he's wild. Like, where does that come from?
That's
he's
just
randomly picking at crazy shit to say.
I know. It's really, at that point, because, after the anti-Semitic thing, there was, he doesn't like Jewish people and he works in Hollywood. You're kind of in hot water when you do something like that. But then when that phone call came out, that was kind of it, really.
Oh, yeah.
People were like, we are done with this guy. And no matter how many times Robert Downey Jr. tries to give him a stage at award shows and stuff, it's not happening, mate. Sorry.
Yeah, he was actually barred from seeing his Oksana and their daughter because of domestic violence.
Yep.
And then there was a domestic violence investigation that was later dropped because he pled no contest to misdemeanor battery.
Mm-hmm.
In August of 2011, he settled with Oksana for $750,000, joint legal custody, and she got to keep the house in Sherman Oaks until their daughter turned 18.
That's not bad.
Not too bad.
In terms of a settlement, that's certainly not Tiger Woods level acrimony right there. So it could have been far worse. He probably should have been in prison.
But wait, there's more.
Oh god.
To make things worse, that whole time he wasn't even divorced from Robin yet. It wasn't even finalized. The divorce was finalized on December 23rd of 2011, and the settlement that she got was the highest in Hollywood history at over $400 million.
Holy shit.
Yeah. See, they didn't have a prenup.
Oh, okay. And then California law.
Yep. She got half his shit.
Of everything. Holy shit. 400 million.
Yep.
Where's he making his? I mean, I know he's getting 25 million a film now, but he's not making 20 fucking films before he has his downfall, right? That's crazy money.
He's also involved in some real estate investments and stuff like other people that run off with Russians.
Okay. Oh, yeah, of course.
The same year. Oh, excuse me. Jesus, I'm skipping ahead. So his statements come out. His divorce goes through. He loses all that money, and he's blacklisted from Hollywood for like a decade. And then, like you said, Robert Downey Jr. is trying to, get him forgiven. And Allison Hope Weiner. Is that right? She advocated for his forgiveness. She's a journalist.
And also, like, Jodie Foster cast him in a couple of things.
And it's still kind of, he kicks it around and tries to make a comeback. And he signed on to direct this movie called Hacksaw Ridge.
Yes. Which is a big success.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's a World War II drama based on the true story of the conscientious objector Desmond T. Doss.
Mm-hmm.
And it went on to receive 6 Academy Award nominations.
That's right.
and it was kind of perceived as his thaw, and he was coming back to work. And a lot of people became eager to work with him again, although he hasn't done a whole lot. He's been nominated for a bunch of Razzies.
Yeah, unfortunately. And he's done like a lot of what are known as Jerry action films.
Yeah, what was The Expendables?
He was in one of the Expendables films, and as Toasterzoid pointed out earlier on here, I'll just do this. He's starring in a John Wick prequel. So
prequel? Was he like John Wick's dad? Maybe that's where he kills the dog.
Yes. There you go. That's the start of the whole dog thing. I don't know. I mean, where can they go with John Wick series at this point? They've done every fucking film under the sun. Yeah, it's like his career, even at this stage, is very much in nomad territory, right? There's no big thing on the horizon.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on. As of 2014, he did that movie, got himself into a relationship with a former champion equestrian vaulter, had a 9th child.
Holy shit. And, every sperm is sacred indeed.
Dude.
Catholics out there loving this.
In 2016, after the election, he said he didn't vote for Trump or Hillary. But then in 2020, at some rally, he was saluting Trump. And then
that makes sense. That tracks.
He's not too political that I can tell. He's just batshit crazy and anti-Semitic.
Yeah, he's just kind of a prick, really.
That's all I got on Mel Gibson. That's where we're at. He's just kind of a prick.
Yeah, just kind of out there existing as an arsehole. In his own world of being a prick and getting as many people pregnant as possible.
I do kind of have the soft spot on the mental health and alcoholism, because I kind of feel like I've been there.
Yeah, me too. And like when something gets its hooks into you that early, like at 13, when your brain is still very much developing, that's not a good time to develop a habit. That's never going away. You can manage it, but you are never getting rid of that. You're just going to get really good at managing it and controlling it, and hopefully that's how it stays for the rest of your life. Yeah, I do feel, and you look at Mel Gibson, the problem you have with Mel Gibson is that because he was in such a position of power, nobody ever really said no to him. So the worst elements of his character, and we all have bad elements in our character, right? They were allowed to kind of flourish and come to the top of his personality, and this whole like family man image that he cultivated for like 25 years rapidly disappeared at one point. Yeah. So I do have a certain amount of kind of sympathy for him, especially with the mental health stuff and the addiction stuff. But there are plenty of people who have got mental health issues and addiction issues who aren't anti-Semitic and racist and violent pieces of shit. So, and again,
we didn't kill anybody.
It didn't kill anybody. We're back to our scoring criteria. In terms of scoring, it's going to be a relatively straightforward one for Mel Gibson because, again, he didn't kill anyone. But I feel like he needed somebody with him who could keep him humble. And I don't think his wife could do that because for some reason he seems to hate women, even though he gets them pregnant all the time. So I think if he had a male figure in his life who he considered an equal, who could say to him, Mel, Jesus, get your shit together, man. Who could marshal him down a road of maybe not abstinence from alcohol, but certainly controlling that use. And maybe helped him kind of control his lesser urges and exposed him to things outside of his experience so that he could understand why, the experience of LGBTQI plus people was, not great, and that you shouldn't, say these things about them, and how, the whole protocols of the elders of Zion is a load of bullshit. And actually, Jewish people have been persecuted for eons and are not responsible for every conspiracy you see under the sun. I think with Mel Gibson, because he's had such a dramatic fall from grace, and because he doesn't really seem to have made amends with wider society, it doesn't seem to have any interest in like, I'm gonna do charity work now, I'm gonna do this. Like, you never hear any redemptive stuff.
Yeah, he's not real apologetic. He did some philanthropy. I left it off the story because I'm a bad journalist. It didn't fit my narrative.
No. But
yeah, what do you think, man?
I think probably an 83 for
Oh,
Mel.
I'll take that.
Yeah, I think purely because he seems to be so ruled by hatred in his life and violence. And I would love to know what happened in his childhood in Australia and, you know, whatever happened with his family or his dad or whatever the situation was. But there's a deep underlying anger and hatred in there, which I don't think is rooted in anything that any Jewish person or any woman has ever done to him. I think it's just they're easy targets for him.
Right.
So,
Well,
you
and
know,
I can say, maybe from experience, even when you have depression, you don't like yourself.
True. Very
When you
true.
don't like yourself, you want other people to hurt the way you hurt.
Yeah.
When you're drunk and you're smart and you're depressed and you're angry and you hurt and you want to hurt other people, you can find some amazingly horrible shit to say to even people that you like.
Yeah, that's very true. Very, very true. And it's a really sad combination. And I do hope that, you know, he gets his life back on track. I don't like seeing people in bad states like that where they feel like that their legacy and their entire life has been ruined by their mistakes and that they're just this thing now. So, you know,
I think he'd have to be apologetic, though.
I think he would really have to try and make amends, and I just don't see that happening. He's just sort of existing. I seem to remember a story a few years ago where he tried to get his arrest either rescinded or stricken from the record or something. And that just made me think, well, he's clearly not learned anything, has he, if he's trying to get wiped?
Exactly.
If he's trying to get the slate wiped clean, having not done any work to earn that. So yeah, I think an 83 for Mel Gibson is appropriate, and I do hope in time he humbles himself and learns from his mistakes. But to be honest, I think at the moment he's just ignoring them.
Yeah.
And hoping that the world forgets. But they won't, Mel. You're in an industry that never forgets because
he's 66. He's got time.
He's got time. He's, you know, and depending on how much damage he's done to his liver, you know, he may have 10, 15 years of work left in him. So, you know, let's just hope that there's a comeback story there. But I just hope that he just apologizes and acknowledges all the terrible things he's done and tries to move on with his life, because it's the only way you find peace. It's by, you know, making amends, saying sorry, and just trying to move on, you know. Anyway, from one arsehole who has an element of sympathy to another who has very few redeeming features in their life, very few.
I'm excited to hear what you got here.
Yeah, I just want to point out that this person is incredibly litigious. So Neil Hamilton, if you are listening or watching, sue Wikipedia, not us, because that's where I got all of this information from, and it's all public record. So fuck you. Neil Hamilton, the worst Welsh politician of all time. Mostyn Neil Hamilton was born in Fleur-de-Lis, a completely misnamed Fleur-de-Lis, a completely misnamed Gwent pit village near Blackwood in Wales. A pit village is coal mining area of that part of Wales.
Oh, like coal pits?
Yes, absolutely. So, and there would have been slag heaps everywhere, and I think the Fleur-de-Lis name may have been slightly ironic. In 1960, he moved to Amanford, which is one of the bigger towns in that part of Wales. His father was a chief engineer for the National Coal Board. His grandfathers were both coal miners, and he was born from a long line of working class mining people. And when he grew up in Amanford in Carmarthenshire, he joined the Conservative Party in 1964 at the age of 15, which in Wales is kind of one of the few unforgivable sins you can commit as the descendant of a coal miner. It's you are working class. Your entire ancestry from recorded history will have been working class and possibly even coal miners or you know workers. And you've just joined the Conservative Party, who have absolutely no interest in the working class and actually do everything they can to make their lives as difficult as possible. The Tories did pretty much everything in their power to ruin the lives of working class people in Wales for the better part of 250 years. And that includes actually outlawing Welsh as a culture and a language for a very long period of time. And this guy's just joined them. So he is persona non grata in Wales, really. Yeah, not a great start when you're doing that at 15. He's right little scamp. Hamilton attended a Manford Valley Grammar School in Manford, obviously. He received a BSc Econ degree in economics and politics from the University College of Aberystwyth, which is kind of mid to North Wales, in 1970, and an MSc Econ degree in economics and politics in 1975. So he's got a master's degree.
In
Which
econ
is
and politics?
in economics and politics, something that he's going to be completely fucking useless at for the rest of his life. While at Aberystwyth, he was active in the Federation of Conservative Students. He was a member between 1968 and 1974. In 1973, as a representative of the Federation of Conservative Students, Hamilton attended a conference of the neo-fascist Italian social movement, MSI. Even for a Tory, that's too far. Lev, since he's from Wales, you have a personal vendetta against this guy. He is a Welsh Tory. There are very few things in life I dislike more than conservatives in Wales, because they are literally there to make the lives of the majority of people in Wales worse.
Seems
quote
fair.
me on that. I don't care. Hamilton went on to study at Corpus Christi College.
They sell donuts there too.
I know, that would be delicious. Corpus Christi University College in Cambridge, where he attended a postgraduate law degree, a degree that will come in very handy a lot in his life. At the 1970 Conservative Party conference, Hamilton called for a mass privatization sweep across the country. Thatcher must have been listening, because that shit happened in the 80s. The following year, he opposed the plan for Britain to join the European communities. In 1972, after several years' membership, Hamilton was elected to the Executive Council of the Conservative Monday Club. He left the club in 1973 and stood as chairman of the Federation of Conservative Students against David Davis, but lost. David Davis has been Welsh secretary in this country for a long time. So he's climbing his way up.
What a bad name for a club, the Monday Club. Nobody likes Mondays.
No, well, it would be a conservative club if it's Mondays. You know, nobody fucking likes Mondays, and nobody likes conservatives in Wales. So it makes sense. In the early 1970s, Hamilton was the founder of the Eldon League, which sounds like something, sounds like a graphic novel that Alan Moore would have written. The Eldon League, a right-wing social organization given to having picnics and dinners and having a jolly good time. It's basically the Bullingdon Club, only with less pig sex. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Google David Cameron pig sex. I promise you won't be disappointed. It might seem like an episode of Black Mirror, but the two things seem to happen simultaneously in real life. Charlie Brooker wrote an episode of Black Mirror where the leader of the Conservative Party in the UK has to have sex with a pig. And then several weeks later, a story broke that David Cameron, in his days in the Bullingdon Club as a student, fucked a dead pig's head.
Oh,
yeah. He was our prime minister when that story broke, and he didn't resign.
What?
I know, it's crazy.
Good time.
I know. So he's part of the Eldon League now, Neil Hamilton, and he appoints himself Grand Imperial Prior. Fuck you, you Tory weirdo. And called for the... This is where he goes a bit mad. And called for the abolition of the internal combustion engine and plastic. I'm with him on that last one. Like,
hey,
yes, replace
with him on both.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, kind of, yeah. Get rid of it. Use batteries. Why not? But
what's he want to do?
Well, he just wants to like give them all to me. I want to hold but he's starting to get really active in politics now, to the point where he stood as the Conservative parliamentary candidate in the February 1974 general election in Abertilly, and in 1979 general election in Bradford North, both of which completely failed, probably because Abertilly is a mining town and most people hated him, and he's a Tory, and he's going to get about 1% of the vote from some old fucker in a cottage somewhere. And the people of Bradford, the fine folk of Bradford, would be wondering why this Welsh Tory was trying to get elected in their patch. So didn't work out. However, on the 12th of March 1983, Hamilton was selected as the Conservative candidate for the newly created Tatton constituency. They made up a constituency to get one of their boys in. Hooray for gerrymandering.
Yeah, it's like...
Rejoin the boundaries. Rejoin the boundaries. Right, let's get all the Tories in this area. There we go. Right, you can have that one little seat.
When all else fails, change the rules.
Change the law. It's better than the Mickey Mouse Club. That's a fair point, actually. Although I feel like the Mickey Mouse Club, probably there's probably not as much pig sex in that either. So 3 months later, at the 1983 general election, which is the next one after Margaret Thatcher comes to power, Hamilton was elected to Parliament as MP for Tatton, and you'd created constituency, obviously, but also at this point, the Tories are riding a wave and have been for 4 years because Thatcher swept to power in 1979. On entering the Commons, Hamilton was appointed as an officer of the backbench committees on trade and industry under the chairmanship of Michael Grills, whose son Bear went on to drink his own piss multiple times on international television in survival programs that were filmed mere meters from the nearest Ramada resort.
Zing.
Zinger, Bear Grylls is a liar. Yeah. And also he bought a Welsh island off the coast of Anglesey and installed, I mean, I'm kind of slightly on board with this, installed a massive slide off the island into the ocean, like a 100-meter concrete slide. I'm like, shit, that sounds fun. I'll do that.
Sounds, well, I guess, yeah, if you're doing it with I was just thinking you'd slide down it on your skin, but concrete would fuck you up, man.
Yeah, I know. It must be smooth, but still, like, I guess he's got to protect it against the ravages of the sea. But yeah, it sounds like
like a inner tube or something and go down.
Yeah, it would make sense. Or like a something to sit on, you know, so you don't skin your ass to pieces.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bear Grylls drinking piss in the middle of nowhere, despite the fact he's hundreds of meters from a hotel. In 1984, against party policy, Hamilton opposed the abandonment of leaded petrol in Britain. He argued that there was no evidence that leaded petrol was damaging the environment or health, except there was. We've covered this in previous episodes. Even Thomas Midgley Jr. knew that it was dangerous when he made the thing because he nearly gave himself lead poisoning. Well, he did.
Yeah. Is this the guy that hired the guy from the other one?
Yeah, it feels like it. Yeah. So, yeah, Neil Hamilton is now denying that leaded petrol is dangerous, which it is. He also argued that jobs would be lost in his constituency if leaded petrol was banned, which is the exact same argument / lie created by E. Bruce Harrison, another arsehole that we've quoted who is dead set on destroying the planet. So he's quoting two of the worst people to ever exist. Thank you, Neil Hamilton, for coloring your flag right there. We know exactly what you're all about. Hamilton resumed his activities as a supporter of pressure groups, including the Western Goals Institute, led by ex-Young Monday Club chairman Andrew V.R. Smith, and attracting the support of other parliamentarians such as Sir Patrick Wall, Bill Walker, Nicholas Winterton, and the Reverend Martin Smith, who was on the Parliamentary Advisory Board. The Western Goals Institute achieved notoriety by inviting Jean-Marie Le Pen, leader of the neo-fascist French national movement, and Alessandra Mussolini, Benito Mussolini's granddaughter, a deputy sitting for the Italian neo-fascist MSI, to address fringe meetings at the 1992 Conservative Party conference. Have we got anyone from the KKK? Let's get them over as well.
It's a really good thing that, you know, politicians these days in America learned from this guy's mistakes, and they don't ever show up at white nationalist or fascist organizations to speak.
Never hang out with David Duke or anyone like that, you know?
Hey, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? You're going to sue us? It's the truth. The party chairman, Sir Norman Fowler, was so outraged and said that the Conservative Party was not related to the Western Goals Institute. In the event, the meetings were cancelled for neither Le Pen nor Mussolini could come to Britain. What the fuck are you doing inviting someone called Mussolini to talk at your conference? Are you fucking mad? Even the Tories are getting sick of his shit at this point. It's really funny. Ian Greer Associates. In 1985, he began working for Ian Greer Associates, lobbying on behalf of US tobacco. Hamilton, together with Michael Brown, became an enthusiastic supporter of US tobacco's product, Skoal Bandits, a teabag type of pouch of tobacco designed for chewing.
Yeah. Yeah,
you've heard of that?
So you don't get it in your teeth and shit. It's in a little paper coffee filter
hanging out from it, like you've been fish hooked. The product was believed to cause serious risk of oral cancer, particularly for minors, who were probably targeted by marketing, I'd imagine.
Well, it's super easy to use because it's in like a little paper thing. You don't even get like chewing tobacco is messy.
Yeah,
and it makes you throw up if you swallow it.
Oh, wow. That's disgusting. And the government was inclined to ban its import. Hamilton said he supported the introduction of skull bandits on libertarian grounds. That's his exact reasoning. And lobbied ministers, including Edwina Currie and David Mellor, to allow its introduction. The House of Commons Select Committee on Standards investigation stated Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Brown had a number of contacts with ministers and officials as part of their campaign to influence government policy on skull bandits, and said there was no evidence that any appropriate declaration was made. Hamilton was obliged to concede he had been wrong to make no reference to payment when I went to those meetings with ministers. So they asked him if he'd been paid to do this. He said no, he was lying, because of course he got paid. It's big tobacco. They pay everyone. Right. You know? Shitloads of money, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
It's not looking good, is it, at this point? Like, he's kind of aligning himself with some really extreme people.
He's got his fingers in all kinds of bad things. Like, let's go leaded gas, and let's well, the only thing he said was let's get rid of plastic. When does he start thinking that we should make our ocean of plastic instead?
Yeah, start eating plastic. Get it in your bloodstream. It's good for you.
Plastic, get it in you.
I'm waiting for him to do a U-turn on that. Start working for Big Plastic. In June 1990, Hamilton was recruited by the right-wing Monday Club activist Derek Lord to work for the Strategic Network International. By the way, things, we talked about extreme positions. It's about to get worse. A firm, so he was recruited to the Strategy Network International, a firm specially created to lobby against anti-apartheid movements and economic sanctions for apartheid South Africa's transitional government of Namibia, set up in defiance of UN Resolution 435 on Namibian independence. Neil Hamilton, huge fan of apartheid.
Dude, he's like for all the bad shit.
Just like, yeah. Oh, is Satan real? Can we get involved with Satan? He's a Welsh man, and he's doing everything that Welsh people hate. It's almost like he's trying to piss off our entire country, but also like, why are you doing all of this? It makes no sense. Apartheid, at that point in the late 80s or the early 90s, everybody knew that the South African role of apartheid was coming to an end. So what are you doing attaching yourself to that movement? It's crazy.
I feel like you'd have to try to be this much of an ass.
I know. He's going out of his way to find the worst things. Now let's move on to Margaret Thatcher's leadership contest. This is just fucking hilarious. Margaret Thatcher appointed Hamilton a whip in July 1990, which basically he became part of her cabinet. So we had some sort of position within the government and stuff. That's what getting the whip is. In November 1990, Michael Heseltine initiated a leadership challenge to Margaret Thatcher. Hamilton was told by the chief whip to stay neutral, but says he ignored this instruction. I naturally ignored this advice and fed all my intelligence into her campaign. I love how proud of being a fucking snitch he is.
Wow. Jesus.
He's so stupid. Again, Thatcher's done at this point. She's been in power 11 years. She is fucking ancient and she's making really bad decisions, but he's like, I'm going to support the old lady. He's like, dude, even if you are just a careerist, this is the worst possible move right now. He also said that he made the fateful suggestion that she interview each cabinet member individually, believing they would lack the resolve to tell her to her face that she must resign. Unfortunately, I had miscalculated. Yeah, you did, because they all fucking told her to go to her face because they weren't scared of her anymore. Like, lady, you have done enough. This country is on its knees. Hamilton strongly encouraged Thatcher to persist. At a meeting where Peter Lilly argued that Thatcher could not survive, Hamilton subjected him to a barrage of sarcasm and heckling in the middle of the meeting. On the 21st of November 1990, Hamilton and like-minded colleagues met Thatcher at Downing Street. Thatcher did subsequently resign, and in the next round of election, Hamilton voted for John Major, the fucking turncoat. So that's all you need to know about Neil Hamilton and loyalty. So yeah.
Well, I mean, he's over there snitching and shit anyway, and going after
That's just, it's crazy.
It's on par. Yeah, it's on brand for this guy.
Yeah, and also he's done nothing. in his political career at this point, other than like really kind of weird, slightly dodgy, corrupt things. So he's not like, oh, I'm going to introduce this initiative. I'm going to work with this person. I'm going to try and work with someone over on the opposite side of the aisle to get this piece of legislation through. No, he's just trying to make as much money as possible from big tobacco and leaded petrol and fucking apartheid, of all things. From 1992 to 1994, Hamilton was the Minister for Deregulation and Corporate Affairs in John Major's government. He came under pressure to step down after the resignation of another minister, Tim Smith, on the 19th of October 1994, after Smith had admitted to taking money in the Cash for Questions affair. We'll get to that later. Facing the same allegations, Hamilton denied and then issued proceedings for libel. But he resigned on the 26th of October at the insistence of John Major. So he was like, I'm going to sue them. No, you're not. You're fired. Okay. All right. Approach to the Maastricht Treaty, which was kind of the birth of the EU. Denmark rejected the Maastricht Treaty on the 2nd of June 1992. Like some other conservative members, Hamilton had also opposed the treaty and was a member of the Eurosceptic No Turning Back group. Despite this, Hamilton remained for a time loyal to the Major government, which endorsed the treaty because it meant that there'd be a lot more money coming into the UK and a lot more opportunities for trade, which is kind of the whole point of government, really. Hamilton urged his colleagues not to resign over the treaty and other issues. So, yeah, he's kind of staying on board. I'm going to jump to the present day because I kind of want to get to the juicier parts of his life.
Is it when he dated Kim Jong-il?
Unfortunately not, no, only his daughter. No, as of 2022, he is the leader of UKIP, the UK Independence Party, an ultra-right-wing political party whose sole stated goal was to get the UK out of Europe. And while a number of its MPs attended European Parliament and collected European paychecks. So they were like, we want to leave, but also, can you pay me now, please?
Yeah.
Despite the fact the UK has indeed left the European Union, there's somehow still a party. And although they kind of like referenced in virtually like every political debate because, you know, fairness and balance, they have a membership of 3,888 people, which is less than the combined followers I have on Instagram and Twitter. So they're barely a political force anymore. So now that we've got that out of the way, he's the leader of UKIP, which is really kind of a non-entity at this point because its entire goal is, you know, it's done. And really the only reason it's around is so that racists have got somewhere to rant about foreigners, basically. So
just in case it has to rise up again and stop you from making things better.
Yeah, in case it has to, you know, really, really hit the European Union hard by calling them names or something. I don't really know what its use is at this point. But now let's get to the real major thing that Neil Hamilton is known for, his legal cases. We'll start with the first major one, the BBC libel case, 1984 to 1986. This thing went on for 2 fucking years.
That's a case.
That's a long case. On the 30th of January, 1984, a Panorama program, which is like a kind of a current affairs program, which until very recently was incredibly highly regarded in terms of its journalistic veracity. Like they exposed so much. So Panorama was where it's at. The program was titled Maggie's Militant Tendency, was broadcast. The program made a number of allegations regarding Hamilton's past and more recent activities. These included his attending and giving a fraternal speech in 1972 to the Movimento Sociale Italiano, those Italian neo-fascists again, led by one of Benito Mussolini's ex-ministers and, you know, got close with his granddaughter and all that. Hamilton's membership of the Eldon League and his involvement with the power elite faction of the Monday Club and the far-right activists George Kennedy Young, the former deputy director of MI5 and the chairman of the Societies of Individual Freedom. So kind of slightly dodgy connections to very high-ranking individuals in society now, but also like extreme right-wing, slightly fascist movements, really. The program also made the claim that Hamilton, this is the part that really got him upset. The program also made the claim that Hamilton gave a Nazi salute in Berlin while messing around on a parliamentary visit in August 1983. A Nazi salute is a criminal offense in the Federal Republic of Germany. Yeah, it's really not a good idea to do that shit.
You know, I actually was just learning about the new way that Germany's kind of been moving. They get that new Germany First Party. Yeah, I watched a thing called the Wave based on something I saw on his Hightailing through history. But anyway,
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's weird because I never thought Germany would be moving back in a direction or having any of its citizens move back in a direction where that sort of hate was going to be okay because of things being illegal like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are in a state now where, because we've had the economic disasters we've had over the last 15 years, the same thing happened after the Great Depression, rise of extremist politicians because people are looking for answers in all sorts of strange places. And unfortunately, it's led across Europe, Western world, and further afield. Some pretty extreme people have made their way into power and have made things 10 times worse while also proclaiming that they're there to do good for the people of their country.
Yeah, it feels a lot like 1920 is repeating itself in 2020, only with cooler shit.
Exactly, yeah. Only with iPhones now, so people can argue more.
Better communication.
Yes. Toasterzoid with a point. Conservatives wouldn't be a problem if my forceful coercion through electroshock therapy project was deemed unethical by the UN. Yeah, unfortunately, you can't use cattle prods on Tories. Only in, brothels, I think. So, in 1986, Hamilton and his fellow MP Gerald Howarth, one of his closest friends, sued the BBC for libel, along with Phil Pedley, a former chairman of the National Young Conservatives, who had appeared on the programme and said that Neil Hamilton gave the Nazi salute in Germany. The Guardian newspaper highlighted Hamilton's admission in the Sunday Times in an article he wrote after the court case that he did a little salute with two fingers to his nose to give the impression of a toothbrush mustache. So a Nazi salute, basically, is what he did. Even though he's saying, no, it wasn't. I was just doing a mustache thing. No, you were doing a Nazi salute, my friend. The prosecution was financed by Sir James Goldsmith and Tacky, the Spectator columnist, both big Tories. So Neil Hamilton, you're going to find, has a lot of friends who just love to give him money for legal cases. David Davis, then a director at internationally famous company Tate & Lyle, persuaded the company to donate a sum to the cause. Lord Harris of High Cross, who helped to finance Hamilton's future libel cases, donated approximately £100,000 to the court case.
Wow.
The Nazi style of picking your nose, that's a very good point. Maybe he was just picking his nose. During the case, Hamilton said he saw himself as something as the Mike Yarwood of the Federation of Conservative Students. For those that have no understanding of that reference, including me, Mike Yarwood is an English impressionist from the 1960s and 70s, and that frequently did impressions of public figures such as Frankie Howard, Harold Wilson, Edward Heath, Ted Heath, Charles de Gaulle, and Enoch Powell. Hamilton said that he had, here we go, there's the final nail. He had colored himself black in 1982 to look like Idi Amin. Why would you dress up as Idi Amin? He was a fucking murderous cannibal.
Was it Halloween? Shouldn't probably do that even then.
Yeah, 1982, blackface. Unfortunately, the Dancing Minstrel Show was still on television at this time. So blackface, while people were like, oh, that doesn't feel right, it was still happening. And, you're Neil Hamilton. You're a fan of apartheid. Why wouldn't you do blackface? He also dressed as Canon James Owen on a boat on the River Cam. Jesus. Yeah. Where'd you go from there? Blackface and apartheid and leaded petrol and
this guy's a winner.
There's nothing else. So blackface was the straw that broke the camel's back. I mean, the camel's back was broken a long time ago. At this point, the camel's bones are being mushed into the sand because he's done blackface at this point. He said he would have 20 character witnesses. My main character witness was going to be Norman St. John Stevens. In a Sunday Times article, Hamilton denied that there was any malicious intent behind the salute. He also pointed out that the one person present at the incident, Julian Lewis, was a Jew, and that a number of his relatives were killed by the Nazis during the war. If that's the case, then why are you dishonoring their memories, Neil? You fucking arsehole.
Yeah.
In mid-trial and without cross-examining Hamilton, the BBC capitulated on the 21st of October 1986. The Director General, Alistair Milne, stated he was instructed to do so by the governors of the BBC. The corporation was directed to pay the men's legal costs. Hamilton and Howarth were awarded £20,000 each. And in the next edition of Panorama on the 27th of October, the BBC made an unreserved apology. The settlement of the case raised serious concerns regarding political pressure and the intimidation of witnesses. Before the BBC defence lawyers had an opportunity to interrogate Hamilton, the Board of Governors met during the trial and instructed the BBC Board of Management to settle the case. The BBC executives at this meeting expressed serious doubts about the decision going in their favour. It was pointed out to them by their own counsel that the BBC hadn't even begun its case at this point. So, sounds to me like someone's gotten on the phone. 1984, possibly a very short, angry woman who had a lot of power at that time.
Squeeze on somebody?
Yeah, putting the squeeze on her friends who ran the network and who gave her very favourable attention. The National Young Conservatives hinted at a stitch-up at the BBC. The chairman, Richard Fuller, told the Eastern Area Young Conservatives, "I find it strange that they have apparently decided to settle now when things appear to be going well because, yeah, Neil Hamilton, it's going to be going well because he's an idiot." Attention focused on the actions of Malcolm McAlpine, a cousin of Alistair McAlpine, the treasurer of the Conservative Party. He denied yesterday that he had appointed Mr. Hamilton that he could deliver the governors behind a settlement, which leads us on to witness tampering allegations.
Yeah.
In
God,
the
this
immediate,
guy's into all kinds of bad stuff.
It's so fucking bad. It's
just
like the
keeps
mob.
going.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's like he's in the mafia, not the Tories, which, I mean, it's looking more and more like the same thing at this point. In the immediate aftermath of the BBC settlement, allegations of witness intimidation abound. A BBC internal memorandum to the Board of Management claims some 17 witnesses had been intimidated into changing their testimony. A BBC stated nearly all the defence witnesses had been quiet. Had quiet word in their ears. Only 2 of 3 people connected with Tory politics who had given vital evidence for us now stuck to their testimony. Some previously expressed disgust at incidents they had witnessed. Now they claim to have not witnessed anything. Yeah, it's like the mob. They've basically been silenced.
Selective amnesia there.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, maybe I didn't mean that after all. Howarth and Hamilton said the case against Pedley would not be dropped, and Pedley said he would not be joining the BBC decision. So this is the kind of the former head of the Young Tories who's like, no, I'm fucking going after these guys. So the Tories are now infighting, and the BBC have nothing to do with it. So it's even funnier for me at this point. The Financial Times reported a solicitor for Mr. Hamilton and Mr. Howarth said later that their linked libel action against Mr. Philip Pendley would continue. Mr. Pendley indicated that he intends to continue the case. The media began to focus on the remaining unsettled case. The Guardian reported that the spotlight had swiveled to Phil Pendley, the Tory defendant who remained adamant he would fight on alone, backed by independent funds, and, he claims, a wide range of Conservative supporters. The people within the Tory party are starting to not like Neil Hamilton. Pedley did not name the supporters, but then chairman of Young Conservatives Richard Fuller pledged financial support to the fight, and in a meeting with Geoffrey Archer, deputy chair of the Conservative Party, Fuller resisted Archer's demands to back down. So he was pressured into kind of getting rid of his support. So the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party is now trying to manipulate the law. That's terrible. Labour accused the Conservative Central Office of organising a cover-up over the claims that Hamilton had given a Nazi salute on a visit to Berlin, and sought questions that to then party chairman Norman Tebbit. Dale Campbell Savers claimed he had evidence in the form of a letter from Pedley to the former party chairman John Sewell Gummer, demonstrating Conservative Central Office had contacted witnesses directly. Tebbit confirmed one witness had been in touch with CCO. I'm aware that one potential witness sought advice from the CCO, but was told that no advice could be given, so we didn't pressure them. It's fine. Don't go into that any further. Tebbit accused Campbell Savers of making his accusations behind the cloak of parliamentary privilege and left the chamber to make his reply. He fucking ran out of the room to get away from it. My staff are appalled and disgusted. They're filled with contempt for a man who can make these sort of accusations of a criminal offense against a member of staff who, Mr. Campbell Savers knows damn well is not guilty of it, except it seems he is at this point, and you're trying to silence people to stop it from happening.
Yeah, just because you don't want it to be true doesn't mean that it's not true.
Exactly. This man almost certainly made the salute, and it's about to get even more interesting. On the 25th of October, the press reported new evidence of inappropriate witness contact. Later that day, Hamilton announced that he was dropping his action against Pedley. However, Pedley affirmed that he had no intention of withdrawing from the case. Hamilton's announcement failed to quell demands for an inquiry, and Campbell Savers denounced Tebbit's tactic of making his statement outside the House of Commons chamber, accusing him of a deliberate ploy to avoid placing himself in contempt by misleading the House in a personal statement. Very, very true. He invited Tebbit to make a statement in the House. If he refuses, then the country will know that a conspiracy of silence is being engineered by senior figures to hide the truth. The Tories covering something up. I'm shocked.
I feel like that happens a lot.
It seems to happen a lot. More information appeared in the press alleging witness interference, including the Hogan Memorandum, the internal BBC documents listing the witnesses who had changed their accounts. The Independent newspaper revealed the existence of a taped conversation of a Tory witness being shaken rigid by Central Office's suggestion that the Berlin events had not happened, and no other witnesses would substantiate or give evidence about those alleged incidents. And the witness was told that no other witness would back his account. So, there's nobody behind the grassy knoll. You're just imagining the gun smoke. Just leave it alone. It was one crazy lone guy in a book repository. So,
it's so they were saying that he went out and made that statement, but it was horseshit because he wasn't under oath, basically, right?
He was I am going to make a statement, and then left because he knew that if he made it under oath, he'd lose his job and probably go to prison for lying.
Yeah.
So, so big deal.
It's kind of like on the January 6th committee when that one lady testified and they were like, no, that's not true. That never happened. Yeah, cool. Come on in here and tell us under oath. No, thank you.
No. Or like Steve Bannon, basically. Pretty much everything Steve Bannon ever said.
Dude, that guy's next.
He's going down so hard. The witness said that this was like a bad dream. Campbell Savers claimed that there was proof of BBC nobbling and announced that he was sending his evidence to Michael Savers, the Attorney General. In the Commons, Campbell Savers said, Central Office set about an elaborate attempt to interfere directly with potential witnesses. Attempts were made to manage and rig statements by David Mitchell. I repeat what I have said previously, but additionally, I am able to say today that there is a tape in existence that confirms the nature of the conspiracy to hide the truth and which identifies persons. Today, I have sent a transcript of that tape to the Attorney General. I have to inform you, Mr. Speaker, that it is but one of two tapes. I await a transcript for the second tape. That's fucking terrifying for the Tories right there. Press interest turned to Hamilton's past statements about the Berlin visit, over which Tory witnesses were alleged to have been pressured to say they had not seen goose-stepping now as well, and Nazi salutes. Hamilton had given a categorical denial he had made a Nazi salute in Berlin to John Sewell Gummer, the party chairman, in 1984. Dear John, oh God, they're breaking up. I make it absolutely clear that whilst in Berlin, I did not do any goose stepping, nor did I at any time give Nazi salutes. Indeed, I have always thought the latter was a criminal offense in the Federal Republic. He definitely didn't write that. That's written by a fucking lawyer. Right, yeah. That's like, you know why I wouldn't do it? Because I know for certain it's a crime, and I know about crimes. I'm smart, me.
Do you think that
But
that was written by the lawyer after they tried to say, well, he didn't know he couldn't do that? They were like,
yeah,
yeah,
I reckon
ignorance
so.
isn't okay. Ignorance is no excuse. Oh,
Yeah,
well, in that
it's not going to
case,
get you out of a crime. Yeah, it's
he
like
didn't do
he
it.
definitely went. He was like, "Oh, wasn't it funny when I did that? That's a crime, right? Yeah, I knew it was a crime. Didn't happen. What are you talking about? I didn't do any Nazi salutes. Just tried a really bad Jedi mind trick." But writing in the Sunday Times, Hamilton admitted making a little salute, and this gets really much worse, in the Reichstag. So he did a Nazi salute in the German Parliament building. What the fuck are you thinking?
Jeez.
Of all the places you could do it,
This
the
guy's just
fucking seat
full
of
of
power in
bad.
Germany. So bad. Hamilton's admission had the effect of reaffirming the testimony of the two witnesses who had alleged he had given a Nazi salute in Berlin and exposing those witnesses who had reversed their position. Hamilton and Howarth immediately reversed their earlier position and dropped their libel action against Pedley. They sought that they said that extracting an apology with Pedley was not worth the bother. He's not going to apologize because you fucking did it, Neil. On the 3rd of December 1986, Pedley refused the offered settlement terms. I love this guy, and asked for a hearing in open court. Justice Simon Brown ruled that Hamilton and Howarth be debarred from alleging Pedley's words were libel and should pay Pedley's cost. I have never liked a Tory more than I do old Pedley here. This guy is fucking like, no, I'm not accepting your apology. I don't want that money. I want more money, and I'm going to smear it all over the press. Like, yes, you fucking get that.
We need more people like that are like, no.
I am not doing it.
Grassy not Knoll engaging in the make-believe.
Grassy Knoll was my nickname in college. Nice, Toasterzoid. Pedley made a statement from the steps to say that he stood by his words in the Panorama program and restated that he had never said that the MPs were Nazis, and that's the important thing. He rather that their behavior was a pattern that would harm the party. And in the case of Hamilton's Berlin behavior, the final report accused Hamilton of batty eccentricity. For all those young people out there that don't understand what batty eccentricity means, it's a phrase people used before we discovered the word cunt. On the more substantive allegations, Pedley said he reiterated the points made in the report and had been called into question. I consider I have the responsibility to vindicate the good work done by the members of the committee. Several have endured abuse and hate mail following publication of their names in the Young National Front paper Bulldog and other extremist newspapers. Neil Hamilton seems to be drawing a lot of support from extremist near-terrorist organizations, doesn't he? That's really interesting.
Why do these extreme right-wing fascists always gotta dox everybody and send out their stuff so assholes send them death threats and things?
Exactly. I know. It's the same tactic over and over again. We're not killing them, but we're helping you to.
Yeah.
I hope this will now cease, together with setups and the surveillance and harassment of other witnesses, in my case, by private security companies who had been hired by the Tories to surveil this guy and dig up dirt. They couldn't find anything, and he won. So thank God for this. Now let's get to his second famous libel case, the Cash for Questions inquiry, which has got a really interesting title, and I think I'll explain it more as we go on. On the 20th of October, 1984, The Guardian published an article which claimed that Hamilton and another minister, Tim Smith, had received money in the form of cash in brown envelopes. That is shady as fuck, man. Did it happen in a car park at night? Is that where they got the money?
And it wasn't a direct handoff. Somebody just left it in a trash can and they fished it out later.
Put a chalk X on the trash can to make sure they knew. It claimed the money was paid to the men by Mohammed Al-Fayed, the owner of the exclusive London department store Harrods, and father of Dodi Fayed, who would go on to die with Princess Diana in that crash in Paris several years later. In return, The men were to ask questions on behalf of of Mohammed Al-Fayed in the House of Commons. Smith admitted his guilt and resigned immediately. Hamilton claimed innocence, but was forced to resign 5 days later on October the 25th, 1994. Hamilton, being the fucking idiot he is, brought legal action for libel against The Guardian. Hamilton joined Ian Greer, a parliamentary lobbyist, as a co-plaintiff. In the process, the Bill of Rights from 1689 was amended by the Defamation Act of 1996 to allow statements made in Parliament to be questioned in court. Neil Hamilton's ego forced a change in a law that was nearly 400 years old.
That's something
stupid.
Right there.
Yeah, that's really fucking stupid. Oh my God. On the 30th of September 1996, the day before the start of the libel trial, Hamilton and Greer settled, citing a conflict of interest and a lack of funds. The Guardian greeted the Hamilton collapse with the headline, "A liar and a cheat." They don't care. This is like, fuck you. Do you want to sue us again? You haven't got any money, so why not? Alan Rusbridger, editor of The Guardian, said the decision by Neil Hamilton and Ian Greer must be one of the most astonishing legal cave-ins in the history of the law of libel, and called for the issues to be examined by Sir Gordon Downey, the Parliamentary Commissioner for Standards and the Inland Revenue. Ooh, scary. That's our version of the IRS. Okay. You're getting the tax people involved now. We're getting Al Capone levels of crazy.
There you
go. So they each paid £7,500 towards the paper's legal cost. All the cash for questions evidence was sent to Sir Gordon Downey, the Parliamentary Commission for Standards. The cash for questions parliamentary inquiry took place in 1997. They've done this themselves. They've brought this on themselves by doing the legal action and then just dropping it because they realized that they were fucked. And when you do that, people are like, why did you drop it before he went to case? Oh, because you saw the evidence they had. Right, okay. We want to look into that now.
Yeah, let's just give them a bone. They won't.
Yeah, let's just lead them down the river. Why not? You know? Mm-hmm. Parliamentary inquiry took place in 1997. Hamilton vowed that if the Downey report found against him, he would resign. And
don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, exactly. Edwina Curry, a former health minister, gave evidence. She told the inquiry that in May 1988, Hamilton had been unmoved by a set of photographs that depicted smoking-related cancers, that is, harm to young people, which might have contact with his product that he was promoting at the time. Hamilton argued that the pictures were irrelevant, and I kind of agree with him, actually, because in terms of this inquiry about cash for questions, it is completely irrelevant that he was like, it's cancer, I don't care. But I'd say, you would call it a character assassination, but at this point, what character's left to assassinate?
Yeah, really? It's piling on.
It really is piling on, and it is irrelevant, but just shows that he's kind of a bit of a, well, more than a bit of a prick at this point. Both Hamilton and Michael Brown had received £6,000 in honorarium and hospitality from Skull Bandits. In December 1989, the sale of Skull Bandit products was banned in the UK by the Secretary of State for Health, Kenneth Clarke. Good on you, Ken Clarke.
Yeah.
Downey reported that he found the evidence against Hamilton in the case and Al-Fayed compelling. Hamilton received over £25,000 and had deliberately misled Michael Heseltine, then president of the Board of Trade, in October 1994, when he said he had no financial relationship with Ian Greer, so he lied to Michael Heseltine's face. In a phone conversation, Hamilton gave absolute assurance to Heseltine that there was no such relationship, but he had received 2 payments from Greer in 1988 and 89, totaling £10,000. So, again, lied. Hamilton had asked for payments in kind, so the money would not be taxable. This is why the Inland Revenue are getting involved. He also failed to register his stays at the Hotel Ritz Paris and Al-Fayed's Castle in Scotland in 1989. So he's dodging tax now and getting stays in 5-star hotels. So, yeah.
This guy's on a roll.
He is. I'll just get all the corruption. While all this was going on and the Tories had descended to such levels of sleaze, partly thanks to Ian Hamilton and all this shit, that they were demolished in the next general election by Tony Blair's Labour Party. Prior to the 1997 election, Hamilton determined to try to retain his parliamentary seat. His majority at the 1992 general election, the previous one, had been almost 16,000 votes, which is a substantial amount in this country. It might not sound like a lot, but I mean, in a typical constituency in this country, there might only be 60,000 registered voters. So to have like almost a third of them as a majority, that's a big lead over your nearest. And it's not like there are two parties as well. There'll be the Tories, there'll be Labour, there'll be Lib Dem, there'll be the Green Party, there'll be like
that's a big deal.
A bunch of other independent ones.
Much.
Yeah, exactly. So he had a 16,000 majority in 1992. However, in 1997, Tatton was considered the fourth safest Conservative seat in all of Britain out of over 250 seats. It was the fourth safest. Hamilton was under investigation by the Parliamentary Standards Commission, and as part of the Cast for Questions inquiry, some of the party members thought he should stand down after the collapse of the case against the Guardian, which, I mean, it makes sense, right? Disquiet in the local association became public, but the majority gave him the benefit of the doubt. Hamilton resisted the pressure from senior Conservatives and Conservative Central Council office, to stand down. Legendary political interviewer and one of the scariest men in television history, Jeremy Paxman, who I want to show you some of his interviews at some point in time. He is completely ruthless and goes for the jugular every single time, even when he's got people like Sting on his show.
But he's not like the type that just smashes. Like, okay, so a lot of people that they say can shut down their interview.
Yeah,
they can really get after people, and then you listen to the thing, and all they do is talk over them and do dumb shit. And that's not this case.
No.
Like, it's legitimate.
Paxman is terrifying. There's an interview he does with, I think it might have been Ken Clark, actually, where he was talking about Ken Clark using his position as like chief whip to overrule someone. And he says, so did you threaten to overrule him? And Ken Clark, I had a conversation with the gentleman. Blah, blah, blah. Did you threaten to overrule him? We had this discussion. I go, did you threaten to overrule him? He asked it 21 times before Ken Clark goes, yeah, all right.
Right? Just answer the question, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was one time where he had Sting on and Bono on one program, on a political program about the climate and stuff. And he took Bono to task because Bono had apparently paid for a seat on a plane for his favorite hat to be flown out to wherever he was playing a concert at. And he took Sting to task. And he said, and you, Sting, you've been a kind of an environmental advocate for a very long time. You take first class and private jets everywhere to lecture people on the climate, don't you? He said, I know it's popular for people to go after celebrities because they're high profile, but we're making a difference. And Jerry Paxman went, I'm not going after celebrities, sir. I'm only going after you. And like every single time, people have wilted in his presence. Jeremy Paxman stated that he had the inside line from Conservative Central Office, who had begged Neil Hamilton not to stand, but in a gesture of overwhelming arrogance, he refused to go quietly. That's hilarious. Sorry, Paxman ran over. I just find that man hilarious. On the 8th of April, 1997, Hamilton was chosen as the Conservative candidate for Tatton. 182 voted for him to take the kind of go for the seat. 35 voted against, and 100 people abstained. So a load of people like just not even touching this one. The Observer commissioned ICM polls in the constituencies of the three Conservative candidates tainted by scandal and seeking re-election: Neil Hamilton, Alan Stewart, and Piers Merchant. Both Stewart and Merchant were found to have support consistent with the party's standing, which wasn't great at the time. But in Hatton, there was massive hostility to Neil Hamilton, and he lost the fourth safest Tory seat in the general election, and then gave a resignation speech, which was the most pathetic and angry thing you'll ever see, while people booed him from the stands. It was so funny. On the 3rd of July, 1997, the inquiry found Hamilton guilty of taking cash for questions. No shit. The Independent wrote, Sir Gordon, contrary to Hamilton's confident expectations, had no compunction about concluding that he did indeed take cash in brown fucking envelopes, and called on the new party leader to expel the miscreants, which is what I call one of my Crohn's disease flare-ups.
Expelling
the miscreants. Yeah, that's a posh way. Excuse me, darling, I've got to go and expel some miscreants. Hamilton and Smith also found guilty. Brown and Michael Grills were harshly criticised. I'm sure they just drank some of Bear's piss to make themselves feel better. If Hamilton and Smith had remained in Parliament, Downey said he might have recommended long periods of suspension for both. Hamilton rejected these findings, whereas Smith, who had stood down, accepted them, apologised for his conduct, and retired from politics altogether. Just like, I am ashamed of what I did. I'm gone. If only Neil Hamilton had done that. He's the leader of UKIP now to this very day, 30 years later. Libel action against Mohammed Al-Fayed. So he's not happy with the failing of 2 cases. He wants a third go now. On the 16th of January 1997, Al-Fayed appeared in the edition of Dispatch's documentary series on Channel 4. He claimed that Hamilton had demanded and had accepted cash payments of up to £110,000, Harrods gift cards, and a free holiday at the Hotel Ritz in 1987 in return for asking questions in Parliament on behalf of Harrods. While Hamilton did not deny the holiday, he continued to maintain that he was innocent of improper conduct. The fucking balls on this guy.
Well, yeah, I took it, but it was okay.
Yeah, it was fine. I didn't do it. Leave Mohammed alone, Neil. Yeah, for God's sake, man. Also, Mohammed Al-Fayed is one of the richest men in Britain, and Neil Hamilton has no fucking money left. What are you doing?
Tapped out.
Yeah, dude. On the 31st of July, 1998, Hamilton's action was approved for a court listing. Funds for the action were donated by Lord Harris of Highcross, the Earl of Portsmouth, and Tacky, again, this fucking columnist, who raised £50,000. Other contributors to the fund included Simon Heffer, Norris McWhitter, Peter Clark, all of them fucking Tory names, Lord Bell, Giles Brandreth. These sound like fictional characters from a fucking parody film.
Yeah.
I swear to God.
Biggest dick.
Yes, it's that level. And Gerard Howarth, Hamilton's co-plaintiff in the BBC case, which went so well. Some Conservative MPs, approximately 40 out of 165, also made contributions. In total, approximately £410,000 was raised. What dirt does Neil Hamilton have on these people that they keep giving him fucking money?
Dude, he's got, There's some pictures with some horrible things.
He really must do.
Honestly, I was waiting for you to tell me that he's friends with that Jeffrey guy that disappeared himself.
Oh,
did.
Yeah. Was that Lord Lucan you're talking about? Jeffrey.
Epstein. Yeah.
Epstein. Right. Sorry. Yeah. Probably a little bit before his time, but had he met him, I think they would have been on similar wavelengths, to be honest. The jury trial commenced in November 1999. Hamilton and his wife were cross-examined by George Carman QC. George Carman is a fucking shark. He's legendary in this country for being the most aggressive cross-examiner in history. And Carman put to Hamilton that he had acted corruptly to demand and then take £10,000 from Mobil Oil in 1989 for tabling an amendment to a financial bill. Oh, not just even Mohammed Al-Fayed at this point. It's fucking Big Oil as well. At the time, Hamilton was a member of Commons Select Committee on Finance, and he's accepting bribes. Al-Fayed said that Hamilton had taken the money in either brown envelope cash payments or through Ian Greer, who I guess, I don't know, maybe he wore a brown bag or something to kind of get the effect going that he is a brown bag.
He was in a brown trench coat with a hat on, and he just
exactly, just all brown, so that he knows what's going on. I've never received a penny from Mr. Fayed. I have never asked, said Hamilton. His counsel, in closing comments, argued that Al-Fayed's assertions had destroyed his client's reputation. That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, that's what did it.
Yeah, he's definitely got one left, I swear. On the 21st of December, 1999, just in time for Christmas and the millennium, the jury unanimously ruled in favor of Mohammed Al-Fayed, declaring Hamilton corrupt. A year later, Hamilton lost his appeal against the decision and was refused leave to appeal to the House of Lords on the 2nd of April, 2001. On the 22nd of May 2001, unable to pay his legal fees and with costs accounting to some £3 million, Neil Hamilton declared bankruptcy and was discharged from bankruptcy just 3 years later. So it was like quick holiday where he doesn't have any money, you know?
Okay. He's got an envelope somewhere.
Yeah, there'll have been a bunch of brown envelopes. And now let's get to the various ways in which Neil and his kind of really weird wife, Christine, had to turn to support their lavish lifestyles in these years by what's known in this country as completely humiliating television appearances, where you get paid a lot of money to make yourself look like an idiot.
Aha.
On the 9th of May 1997, Hamilton and his wife Christine appeared on the current affairs satire quiz, Have I Got News for You?, which is legendary in this country. It's been going for about 35 years at this point. It's really, really good. And unfortunately, it's become famous recently for... they had Jimmy Savile on, and they were asking him questions like, Jimmy, are you popular? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm famous I'm feared in girls' schools up and down the country. And there's a moment where both hosts who know the rumors, because this is before it was proven, but the rumors, they're both like, like they can't believe what they're hearing, that he's this brazen. Anyway, The quiz show, it's been a lot of points like that over the years where they've had controversial people on. It's actually resulted in some really interesting stuff. The host, Angus Deaton, presenter of the panel game show, wore a white suit instead of his usual brown one. This was a humorous reference to Martin Bell, the former journalist who had beaten Hamilton in the election and who wore the exact same suit the night of the 1997 general election. And he'd also worn it a bunch of times when Neil Hamilton was doing TV appearances, and Martin Bell would just show up and just hijack the interview and say, where did you get your money from, Neil? Is this from Mobil? Is it from Big Tobacco? Is this from Mohammed Al-Fayed? As a further taunt at the end of the show, the Hamiltons live on television were handed their fee in a brown envelope.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's amazing. At one point, Hamilton quipped, I found it's much better to make political jokes than be one. Too late. On the 30th of March 2000, Hamilton appeared on The Ali G Show on Channel 4.
Oh, nice.
That's amazing. For a satirical comedic interview where he was seen to be sharing what appeared to be a joint with presenter Sacha Baron Cohen's Ali G character. This is the 30th of March 2000. Elon Musk ripped off Neil Hamilton by smoking that joint.
But Rogan's not satire. I mean,
no, he's not.
He's ridiculous.
He's completely serious. In 2001, Hamilton appeared on When Louis Met, a documentary series created by Louis Theroux, who you can now find as the "My money don't jiggle jiggle, it folds" man. That's him doing that rap all over social media. Louis Theroux's documentary series are amazing. He's very disarming because he's about 6'5". He's like, yeah, he's huge. He's very, very Jewish, and he's very thin and quite geekish in a way, and the way he acts and stuff. So he's very disarming. People see this really tall beanpole of a guy, and they're like, oh yeah, he's harmless. But actually, he completely disarms people, and they say the most ridiculous things without realizing, because they've been some sort of hypnotized by this kind of charming, almost inoffensive looking guy, but he gets the worst stuff out of people. It's amazing. In the 2001 episode, he described during which he described himself and his wife as professional objects of curiosity, which they've become at this point. There's a really awkward scene where Neil Hamilton leaves the room. I don't know if he's making a cup of tea or something. And Christine shuffles along the sofa closer to Louis Theroux and they're all drunk at this point, and starts doing one of the clumsiest, come-ons you'll ever see. She starts touching him and flirting with him and stuff. And she seems to forget that there are cameras in the room, because there are cameras set up everywhere. And she just starts almost mounting Louis Theroux, and it's really uncomfortable. And yeah, basically at that point,
actor, it was for real. She was drunk and did that.
I think it was real. I've seen her acting, and it feels real.
Too good to be acting.
Yeah, and at this point, Louis Theroux is maybe 25. Christine Hamilton's in her late 50s. So it's it's weird, and they're all it's just,
he's trying to climb the beanpole.
Yeah, it felt really uncomfortable. Since that moment, the Hamiltons have appeared in pantomimes and television chat shows and programs such as The Weakest Link and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and Ready Steady Cook. All of this so that they can keep getting paid for being, basically, they can't work in politics properly anymore. He appeared on a celebrity edition of Mastermind on Boxing Day 2004 and didn't do very well. Mastermind's like a big brain quiz thing.
show, yeah.
Yeah. He appeared in the Rocky Horror Picture Show wearing a 6-inch stiletto heels, a basque, suspenders, and stockings. However, he declined to appear on Big Brother or Celebrity Wife Swap because he felt that it was undignified.
He was worried his wife was going to really swap.
Yeah, she was going to full on go for it. She wasn't just like, this is the way I like to do things. I like to clean on this way. No, she was going to climb into bed with whoever was on the show.
Oh, I totally misunderstood.
I was drunk. It's fine. It's the Mel Gibson excuse. In 2005, and this is where we'll get to leave this. Hamilton appeared on the Johnny Vegas show, 18 Stone of Idiot, where he danced in a Perspex box while Johnny Vegas and a member of the public poured buckets of dead fish over his head. And that's where we leave Neil Hamilton, covered in dead fish, while a drunken northern comedian makes fun of him.
What the hell kind of shows do you guys have over there?
Johnny Vegas is the best, but we have a lot of, particularly in the 2000s, we had a lot of very weird shows that were designed to humiliate people. And I should point out that Johnny Vegas is the antithesis of what you would imagine a glamorous comedian would be like. He's very loud. He's very northern. And he was discovered doing a show, a live stage show, where he would come on stage at like a comedy club and there'd be a potter's wheel and the music from Ghost would start. Oh, my love. Yeah. And he'd come out and he'd already be drunk at this point, right? He'd have a can of beer in his hands and he'd berate the audience like, you're up here laughing at me and I'm just trying to put on an artistic show and stuff. And he'd start berating them. And then eventually, after about 5 minutes of that, he'd sit down, music would start playing. He'd use the beer from his can to like make the clay more malleable. And like, as it got on, he'd be like doing the whole, like, you'd be like, wow, this is actually good. This is good pottery. And then like, he'd start to look a little bit pale. Start to get a bit worse, and then he'd vomit into the thing that he was turning into pottery. No. But he'd infuse the pot with the vomit.
No,
I know. And that was how Johnny Vegas was discovered. And since then, he's only gone on to weirder and weirder things. That Dustin Hoffman got a Lifetime Achievement Award, an award ceremony that was broadcast. And he was like secret friends with Johnny Vegas, but he dragged Johnny Vegas up on stage without telling him in advance. And he was berating him. He was like, look at you. You're 30 years old and you're still 18 stone. You still eat like a child. You're drunk now. Your tuxedo doesn't fit you. Your boobs are poking out and stuff, and just berating him on stage. The audience is laughing, and Johnny Vegas just goes, all I can be is who I am. And the audience just burst into tears. And so if you get a chance to watch Johnny Vegas's stand-up, it's all like quiz show appearances. He's really weird. He does occasionally laugh at himself. He's lost a lot of weight, but he realized that Neil Hamilton was basically desperate for money. So he was like, what can we get away with? So we'll just cover him in dead fish.
Okay. This is 2 Black Mirror references in this show.
Yeah.
Here. That's a lot like that where they're riding the bikes and they get that heavy set people show where they just make them do dumb shit. Is that
exactly?
Actually sounds exactly like the show.
It's funny you should mention that because before Black Mirror and before all of the stuff, because Charlie Brooker's been doing stuff for years around satire in television. He used to do a thing called Screen Wipe, which you can find on YouTube, where he analyzes TV shows from a satirical point of view. And before that, he had a website, a very early website, which was hugely popular, called TV Go Home. And I've got a first edition of the book, and it was weekly. He'd do one a week. It'd be like a fake TV listing. So it'd be like Extreme Television, 12:05 p.m., wolf fucking, and stuff like that. Just like all these weird programs, Landmine Hopscotch, and just really offensive things like that. But he said that he had to stop doing it because in about 2000, a TV show was created on Channel 5 called Touch the Van or Hold the Van or something like that. And basically 5 to 10 people would stand around the van holding it. The last person left standing after. I think you guys have
wins the van.
Like this in America. Yeah.
Or tickets to some shit.
Yeah, yeah. And well, actually, they won the van. That was the point of the show. Like, if the last person standing won the van. And there was one episode where someone had to run off the stage because they'd shit themselves.
Ooh.
And at that point, Charlie Brooker was like, I knew I couldn't do satire anymore because television had caught up to satire, so I had to move on to dark horror, really.
You know, I think the thing that messes me up the most now is realizing that I was laughing at stuff with people that was satire, and because it was satire and funny, and there was other people that were laughing for totally different reasons.
I know. I know, it's so dark.
Now they run the place.
Yep, and now they've turned the world into satire.
Yeah, it sucks.
So, getting back to Neil Hamilton, what do you think of his career in the sky?
Immediately, I want to go like, where's my? There it is, real high.
Yeah,
because just dumb shit after dumb shit after dumb.
I know,
and like it's just full idiot.
It's great as well, because when I was looking for someone, I was like, I wanted a classic idiot, like someone who never learned. And Neil Hamilton, not only was he on the wrong side of history in his parliamentary career with all of the different things that he was supporting and trying to get money from, but also like he kept making the same mistake over and over again and ran out of money and had to humiliate himself on national television to get any kind of living. And now he's back in politics off the back of basically the UKIP party is built on hate. There's no two ways about it. So
that's where we are globally. I think, unfortunately.
So he's a classic idiot in the most basic term of the word.
It was like he sought out what's some dumb shit I could do now.
I know.
What's really horrible? Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
So, geez. And he just kept doing it. And then he'd find new ways to do it. And
make money from it.
I'm going high with him. I'm going to have to go all the way with a 94. I know he didn't kill anybody directly, but mouth cancer from those bandits is like a legit thing. And it was like he did it on purpose.
Yeah, he must have known. And like to deny that leaded petrol was dangerous, that's like, dude, at that point, everyone knew it was dangerous.
And to me, people in positions of power to make decisions and influence things and normalize horrendous behavior and dumb crap like that are the worst, because it's making other people want to be that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is the people that you look up to, your government and whatnot, and
Yeah.
They're training the youth how to behave, and that is not the way to behave.
No, they're supposed to be statesman-like, and they're supposed to be leaders. You know, these are people who are chosen by tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in some circumstances of people, millions. And they have an obligation as leaders to behave in ways that benefit the people that elected them. And you do not benefit the people that elected you by giving them mouth cancer or trying to get them exposed to leaded fuel or like supporting the apartheid regime and taking money from big oil,
keeping them out of
terrible shit.
Yeah. Sorry. I didn't mean to get over it. It's awful. Like, yeah. And, God, now I kind of want to give him a 96.
No, I feel like 94 is really high score. It's funny because when I went into researching Neil Hamilton, I knew about the court cases because it was just all over the news for months. Like, he was humiliated across this nation. However, I didn't know about the political stuff. I knew he was Welsh. I knew he was a Tory. So immediately I was like, well, something's gone wrong there. But like all of the stuff he supported, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrible stuff. Trying to introduce
And he went from like trying to get rid of the internal combustion engine and plastic, the like other direction.
Yeah, the worst possible turnaround you could possibly have. So
I'm still comfortable with a 94.
Yeah, I will take 94 for Neil Hamilton. I hope he doesn't try and sue us. I hope he's over that by now. But financially, I think he realizes that he's made so many enemies that, what's the point? Just enjoy what time you have left. And actually, I mean, there was a point in time where they were ubiquitous on television, the Hamiltons, and it was always really kind of sad because they were always a bit of a punchline, and I don't think they realized it because they thought they were just like, oh, we're fun objects of curiosity. Actually, no, you've become a flogging post for people.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that kind of makes me sad.
Yeah, but like he's back in politics now, I guess, and it's UKIP, so I will never get on board with that. But at least he's like active doing a thing again. I guess.
You know what? I'll go straight out and say if he does be litigious and try to sue me, good luck. You're only getting debt.
Yeah, you're only getting debt from us, especially thanks to Anchor with their monetization. But yeah, so yeah, I think Neil Hamilton, because I had wanted to do like a Welsh idiot for a while, and there are a few people I could have covered, and I thought, well, why not look at politics? Because there are a lot of Welsh politicians who have had massively huge positive impacts on the UK. So you've got someone on like Aneurin Bevan who created and founded the NHS, which has saved the lives of tens/hundreds of millions of people over the years since it was endorsed, and stopped people from falling into poverty because of healthcare debts and stuff like that. And then you've got someone like David Lloyd George, who was the UK's prime minister during the First World War and held the country together in a Churchill-like state. And and Aneurin Bevan's wife, who helped found the Open University, so people who didn't have huge levels of qualifications or indeed huge amounts of money could go to university and get a university education from the comfort of their home, or older people who'd never had a chance to go to university got a chance to study something that they'd always been passionate about. So these are great Welsh political figures. And I was just like, I'm sure there's one out there. And I was like, Neil Hamilton. Oh, so perfect. So
you found him.
I found him reasonably quickly. So it was really good to be able to research him because, like I said, I didn't know half of the stuff about the apartheid stuff and
that's just
all
weird.
Of the botchiness. It's so weird. Such a weird thing to tie himself to. And so what did you...
Stuff I know is dumb.
I know. It was so distressing and weird to see. And also, obviously Mel Gibson, one of the most notorious people, still active in Hollywood somehow. Both of these people still active.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Honestly, Mel Gibson was like my favorite, like my role model. Yeah. And I mean, God, that was a bad role model. Now I know where I went wrong.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I liked him as well. But, you never really, I guess you never know anyone, do you? And people obviously keep their private lives private, and that's totally fine. But I really, for a long time, more. Yeah, maybe Mel Gibson should have done a better job of keeping it private. But yeah, I feel like, he could have been so much more had he just like gotten his life together. We could have seen really good, really introspective work, but there's still time for both of these people. I mean, Neil Hamilton's getting old now, and Mel's getting a bit old as well, but there's still time.
I feel like Mel is so smart and so talented that if he would have just gotten a little bit of mental health care and stayed away from alcohol, he could have changed the world somehow.
I feel like he definitely could have made the kind of art because also another thing we didn't talk about was Apocalypto, which was another film he directed.
I skipped that was
a really, really good film. It's really violent.
Yes.
And depicts like the Aztec civilization and like a native tribe and like enslavement and violence and stuff like that. But it's a really, really well made film, and another film that's done exclusively in a language that is not English. And like those kind of works are really interesting. And had he stayed on the right path, we could have got some really quite interesting art from him. But that was not to be. And I mean, Neil Hamilton was kind of fucked from the start, really. I mean, you talk about Mel Gibson drinking at the age of 15. This guy was a Tory by the age of 15. I don't know which is the worst corrupting force, but like, that's like, you're kind of screwed at that point, right? So I guess the early trauma thing at this point, it's like going down the wrong path at a young age, maybe kind of affected both lives. So I'm still surprised that a guy whose entire family were coal miners became a conservative.
So weird.
It's so weird. It's so against the grain. Maybe it's a rebellion thing.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So there we go. Mel Gibson, anti-Semitic, Hollywood infamy, and still somehow working. Neil Hamilton, the man who sued everyone he could and is still somehow working despite losing every single libel case.
Sued people for doing things that he did that he said he didn't.
Yeah, sued people for telling the truth. And who knew that eventually that comes out, apparently. So, yeah. So those are our two idiots for this week. I've had a lot of fun doing this. I had a lot of fun. I knew you were kind of going to give me like an actor-director. I didn't honestly think it would be Mel Gibson. I didn't know who I thought it would be. I thought it would be maybe
could be
Cecil
anybody.
B. DeMille or something. It could have been anyone. Yeah. There are quite a few candidates in Hollywood for idiots, and maybe we'll get to them in the future. But yeah, I think Mel Gibson is a very good starting point for famous idiots, certainly. Yeah. So, sorry, pardon me. That's our show for this week. If you'd like to follow us on our social media, we are at Greatest Idiots on Twitter, and we are at History's Greatest Idiots on Instagram. And if you go to patreon.com/History's Greatest Idiots, you can support us financially and do more for us than our hosting platform is currently doing. So if you'd like to help us out, that would be great. And reach out to us anytime. We always like to have suggestions from our listeners. So if you do have anyone, reach out to us on social media and drop us a line. And we covered Tycho Brahe, I think, as a result of a listener suggestion. So that was really good. Jose Canseco, yes, another listener suggestion. So was that one that we covered because someone suggested it to us?
Jose Canseco?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. They told me to cover the Bash Brothers. That was...
there you go. So there you go. So we do audience requests. So if you'd like to, if you have a good idiot for us to cover, then please reach out to us on those social media pages.
Absolutely.
And we'll see you again soon, everybody. Take care now, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye now.